January 1943. World War II is raging. Inside the New Yorker hotel, an 86-year-old man lies dead in his room, entirely alone and completely destitute. Within hours of the discovery, government agents swarmed the building. Their immediate priority was to pack up and remove every item in his suite. The deceased was Nikola Tesla. Federal authorities were acting on wartime intelligence and pervasive rumors that he possessed finalized blueprints for a particle beam weapon, a death ray, and a system capable of broadcasting free electricity to the entire planet. To prevent his research from falling into Axis hands, the alien property custodians seized everything. They hauled away over 160,000 documents, spanning personal notebooks, letters, and technical drawings. Investigators then had to open and categorize these densely packed boxes, searching for potential military threats buried in his research. This raid launched an enduring question. Did the government lock away world-altering technologies that day, or were they simply cataloging the fading, speculative dreams of an isolated genius? The FBI's extreme paranoia was grounded in a very real historical track record. As a younger man, Tesla possessed an extraordinary ability to visualize complex machinery entirely in his mind. In 1882, while walking through a park in Budapest reciting poetry, the solution to a problem that had baffled engineers for years suddenly flashed into his head. He had visualized the rotating magnetic field. By taking two alternating currents and running them slightly out of step with each other, he realized he could create a magnetic field that spun on its own, driving an iron rotor without any physical sliding contacts. He proved capable of pulling these visions out of his head and forging them into heavy iron and steel. Over his career, he secured roughly 300 worldwide patents, designing remote-controlled vehicles, vertical takeoff aircraft concepts, and the massive alternating current motors that powered the Industrial Revolution. He was a proven architect of the modern electrical age. Because he had already built the impossible once, the government couldn't afford to ignore his later, more extreme claims. But as the decades passed, his concrete patents slowed down. With his funding drying up, Tesla's output shifted away from functional prototypes and toward highly theoretical essays. The critical turning point was the Wardenclyffe Tower. He envisioned a massive facility on Long Island that would transmit wireless power across the globe. But the project ultimately collapsed. His ambitions had finally outpaced his engineering reality and his financial backing. Retreating to a reclusive life in New York hotels, his concepts grew increasingly abstract. He spoke to reporters about pulling limitless, free energy straight from the ionosphere and perfecting a teleforce particle beam weapon capable of melting incoming aircraft. Which brings us back to the 1943 archive investigation. To evaluate the seized boxes, the government brought in Dr. John G. Trump, an electrical engineer from MIT. Trump spent 3 days examining the papers. His official verdict was clear. Tesla's later writings lacked rigorous, workable schematics. They were primarily philosophical musings, not blueprints for functional superweapons. The military officially dismissed the danger. Yet the very act of confiscating the documents under the cloak of national security sparked a mystery that outlived the war. The government held on to the files for years, and their subsequent secrecy and selective declassification poured gasoline on public suspicion. Popular conspiracy theories flourished, claiming that shadow governments and corporate monopolies had deliberately suppressed his free energy discoveries to protect their profits from oil and coal. It is a stark contrast. The man who died deeply in debt, feeding pigeons from his hotel window, has been culturally resurrected as a mythic, misunderstood visionary robbed of his utopia. The unproven nature of his final years does nothing to diminish the achievements of his youth. The alternating current grid still hums beneath our streets, working exactly as he visualized it in that Budapest park. The contents of the Tesla archive tell a distinct story. True innovation requires a boundless, almost reckless imagination, but it is rigorous, disciplined execution that actually builds reality.